This is a tutorial on how I made the Lofi Hip Hop on the Digitone track. And I made 3 patterns, and this is the first one. And the second pattern. And the intro pattern. I started with the drums and the bass, which is on bass on track 3 and the drums on track 4. And yeah, the first thing I made was the drum pattern. Which is just one page of 16 steps. And just in case I ruin this pattern, I'll copy the entire pattern and then paste it here, and then I can make changes without worrying about ruining the original pattern. So let's clear this one and I can remake it. So I have the sound on track 4 is just the snare. And I'm using sound locks to play the kicks and hi-hats. So I was using this kick, and I placed kicks on these strings and snares on these strings. Let's see. And I micro-timed the last kick a bit late and made it a bit shorter. And I also micro-timed the snares a bit early to make it a bit offbeat. It's not really noticeable until we add in the hi-hats, which I did with this sound. And I'm going to move this one to note D5, because the kick is on C5, and if they play the same note, they will steal each other's voices. So I'm moving this one up to 62 or D5, so it won't interrupt the kick. And then I will micro-time it almost all the way to the left. And then I'll copy this trig and then micro-time it a bit late. And I'll shorten this one a bit and lower the volume. And then copy these trigs over here and over here. But I have a kick here, so I will copy the first hi-hat here, but the second hi-hat will be after the kick. And then I'll micro-time it to the left to keep the same timing. I think maybe all of these were a bit too late, so maybe over here. And I also added a lock trig on step 12, and this is to make the snare, to give the snare a lot of reverb and a bit of delay when I press the fill button. So I'm giving it full delay or full reverb and a lot of delay. I'll microtime it all the way to the right. And since the snare is microtimed a bit to the left, this one will play after this one. So this lock trig will apply to the snare. And then I will give this trig the fill condition, so that when I press the fill button, that snare gets a lot of reverb. And I also gave the kicks, which is on 1, 7, and 16. I gave them the not fill condition, so that when I press the page button, I will mute the kicks. And the timing will be a bit wonky on the lock trig, because it's a bit earlier than the snare, so you have to press the fill button earlier than usual. And yeah, so that's the drums. And then there's the bass. Which is basically the same twice. And the reason the bass is lacking a bit in low end is because my usual mastering chain includes Maximus, which already boosts the highs and lows. So I shaved a bit of the low end out of the bass because it was too overwhelming with the Maximus plugin. So if I just add the low end back in and increase the frequency a little bit, it's a bit more, it's a bit bigger. And the effects chain I use at the end has a saturation plugin, but since we're only hearing the digitone right now, I will add the master overdrive to get it close to what I actually want, so it sounds like this. And then there's the keys. And yeah, I forgot to explain the voices, because the Digitone only has 8 voices. So I have locked 2 voices to the drums, because there will only be 2 drum sounds at the same time. So it's using these 2 voices. And the bass only has 1 voice. And then the keys, they're actually, let's see. Yeah, they're using 4 voices. I haven't locked any voices to this track because it's gonna take all the available voices, which is 4, because the last one is locked to the lead. So yeah, and these things, if we take a look at, this is the chord, 1 trig, playing 4 notes. And these are basically just a automation of the reverb and delay, where I'm slowly increasing the reverb and delay. So without these, let's copy track. It'll sound like this. And with the lock trigs, it sounds like this. You might notice that the keys will continue playing during the next set of notes because of the added delay and reverb. And finally, there's the lead. And yeah, I'm using the same trick here. Let's see, it's a bit hard to see, but these lock trigs are doing the same thing. They're increasing, the reverb is already on max, but I'm increasing the delay. And that'll make this monophonic synth still play that note when we're playing the next notes, or you'll still hear the first note ring out while the next notes are playing. And that's how I made this pattern. And the next pattern, the B section, is basically a duplicate of the first pattern, but I changed the notes around. And on the bass sequence, there's not enough trigs to play the entire bass line, so I'm using trig conditions to play different notes. So on the first time we're playing the pattern, these notes are playing, and these notes are playing, and so on. But the next time, when it loops around and plays for the second time, it'll play these notes, and that's due to the trig conditions. This one has the first time every second time it loops, and the second time every second time it loops. So it goes like this. Yeah, and the intro pattern is also a duplicate of the main pattern, but with some huge differences. The keys are almost exactly the same. I'm using the bass width filter to remove some of the low end, and using the main filter to filter out the high end. And I'm also using an LFO set to pitch with a random shape and a depth of just 0.35 to give it that tape warble effect. If you increase it, it sounds really bad. And the other difference is instead of a lead melody, I made ocean sounds. And what I'm basically doing here is just I hit record to just played some random notes. And on some of those trigs, I increased the frequency and the envelope depth to get a different sound. A slightly louder version of this. And then I panned them a bit left and right. Oops. I panned them a bit left and right, and then I changed the track length to something different so it won't loop perfectly in sync with everything else. And then there's the drums, which also sound very different. And it's the exact same pattern, but I changed I used the bass width filter to change the sound dramatically. So I removed all the high and low end on the hi-hats. All the snares are also filtered out a lot. And I've changed a bit where the resonance boost is placed. The kicks are a lot weaker. Everything is just generally a lot softer and more filtered. And the other difference, or the final difference, is instead of a bass, I have this sound, which sounds like this. And it has a lot of reverb and delay. But I'm using the same trick where I place lock trigs and then slowly increase chorus, delay, and reverb. And that makes it so that when we switch to the next pattern and this track is playing a bass, this sound will still be very audible because of all the delay and reverb. And I set this trig to have the trig condition 8 out of 8. So it'll play 8 times before it finally plays this trig once. And that's how I made this track. Also, I made a tutorial on how to make drum sounds. So all these sounds are sounds I've made from scratch. And I also made a separate tutorial on how to make entire drum patterns in one track. Then I also made a tutorial on how to make pads and leads. And I think both of these two are sounds that I pretty much based on the sounds I made for that tutorial. And I also made a bass tutorial. It's one of my earliest tutorials, or the first Digitone tutorial, so it's not the most advanced, but I think I made this sound on that tutorial as well. And also, all these sounds and this project, along with everything else on this project file, is available to my Patreon. So if you'd like to join, that would be awesome.